My name is Peggy LaPointe, and this is Talking Trash, a Green Tips podcast, a chance for me to dive into the world of environmental issues by talking to people in business, government, and nonprofits, folks knee-deep in the field of sustainability. Episode 57 features Briar Schoon, Sustainability Manager for Portland Community College. As Sustainability Manager, PCC has, how many campuses? 4?
4.
Yeah. And so you are the Sustainability Manager at all 4 campuses. What does that look like? Because that's how many students that you impact every single one of them, but in a way you do.
Sure. So I think currently we're a little over 70,000 students. There's a lot. And so at the district level, we're really focusing a lot on streamlining sustainability throughout our operations, our academic offerings, and student life and student engagement. So it's a lot of high-level stuff, but also we very much get in the weeds too. And it really depends between the different campuses. For example, Rock Creek has a lot going on at the campus. We have 4-acre learning garden. We have the Washington County Master Gardeners out there. We have our largest PV array out there. We have 500 kilowatt solar system. We have an active farm, lots going on. And so at that campus, we actually have a sustainability coordinator that's dedicated to working on those campus-based initiatives, and we coordinate with them. Her name's Elaine, very, very closely. And so, it really varies between the different campuses, but from an operations perspective, we're very much focused on policies that support sustainability. We're very much focused on reducing our carbon footprint. So we have a climate action plan that we're actually about to update this year, 2020. Yes, it's going to be quite a process. Working on initiatives like recently we worked with IT on a power down initiative. So essentially shutting down computers automatically at 11 p.m. And we're estimating that will produce like $80,000 in energy savings just there
in 1 year.
Annually. Yes.
That's big money, $80,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're excited about that. We have a Sustainability Leadership Council that's a cross-college group of folks engaged in sustainability that at the district level I coordinate and help lead. And this is looking at everything from alternative transportation to improving the opportunities for sustainability curriculum. We work closely with our student leaders. We have sustainability directors at each campus for student leadership, and they host events and different whatever they want to work on that year. We're working with them and advising them, and so
we could sit here and talk all day.
Yeah, really, anything we kind of have our hands in. So it's overwhelming. Yeah. Literally, my day could look like from being in the garden, or I do some beekeeping at the Sylvania campus.
Right.
So I might start the morning with that. Then I'm running to a meeting with some of our executive leaders, and then I'm presenting to a class, and then running. It's just all over the place. So it's
that's exciting though.
Yes.
Because I like variety in my day. Mm-hmm. So and you've got what's neat is that each campus is so different. You've got the urban campus that I live sort of near on the east side, that new one.
Southeast?
Yeah, the relatively new one.
Yes, our newest campus.
Right. And then, Rock Creek, which is obviously a much more rural-ish setting. So you've got different features at different one. Let's start off with maybe giving me a sustainability highlight, if you will, at each of the campuses. We know Rock Creek has the garden. They have an apiary. Did I say apiary? Yeah, yes. I was like, it's not apiary. Apiary there. And so what other features are at Rock Creek? And then give me some of the features at some of the other ones as well.
So I think I've already spoken a little bit to Rock Creek, and that's definitely where we have our most hands-on programming. So the 4-acre learning garden, we have Portlandia Farm Standia. And so this is a farm. Yeah, it's a farm stand that sells produce from the garden. And what's really cool, this is actually an award-winning initiative because it's the only of its kind at a higher ed institution that accepts SNAP benefits.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So food insecurity is a big focus for us at PCC. It's a big focus through sustainability as well.
It's a big issue for students.
It's a huge issue for students. And so this is one of the ways we're integrating that into our sustainability programming. So at the farm stand, students can use SNAP benefits or they can volunteer in the garden. And I think for every hour they get $5 credit.
Wow.
Also, the produce or the proceeds from the farm stand go into vouchers that can be used at dining services that we also hand out to volunteers. So it's a super cool program, really focused on keeping food local, educating students on organic gardening, and promoting food security on campus. So it's super cool.
Yeah, the volunteering in the garden is something that will stick with them lifelong, and they can grow, if you will, from there.
Absolutely. And that's a huge piece of food security, food justice, right, is really empowering folks to grow their own food and have that at their fingertips, really. So, we have the 500 kilowatt solar PV system, the farm that we work closely with, the apiary. Our landscape tech program is out there, and they have a lot of sustainable landscaping programs. Yeah, there's really just, you name it, lots going on out at Rock
absolutely.
Creek.
Okay, how about Sylvania?
Sylvania, we also have a learning garden. That's our second largest learning garden, and we have an apiary there as well. During spring to fall, we have two hives there, and then they go back to Rock Creek to overwinter. But we're constantly trying to increase the number of beekeeping opportunities we have across the district. We love our pollinators at BCC. We're also campus certified. So love the bees. And let's see, what else do we got at Sylvania? We have some really active student groups. We have the environmental center that's managed by Peter Ritson. And so they're always planning fun initiatives and programs. And we have a lot happening around food security there as well. A lot of the produce grown at the garden goes into our Panther Pantry, which is a food pantry for students. Lots of fun activities.
Yeah. How about the southeast one? Because land is scarce there, scarcer. And what you see are the buildings, but I'm sure the buildings, because they're new, I watched those go up. Those are probably the LEED certified buildings that you've got.
So our library and the student commons are both LEED certified at the gold level. And we have another learning garden at Southeast. And this one has a really beautiful geodesic dome, which is the greenhouse for the garden. And they're also doing a really cool aquaponics program that just got funding from NASA. So and this is through the STEM Center that Julia Betts manages, but I believe they're going to be eventually sending, I think it's tilapia, up to the moon as part of this aquaponics program that they got funding for. So
that's incredible.
It's super cool. We have some Mason Bee hotels at the Southeast campus, and we've started a food forest there. So this is in partnership with our grounds team, and basically it's just integrating edible landscaping across the college.
Love it.
So as you're walking around, maybe you're hungry and you see blueberries or marionberry or strawberry or tomato plant, whatever. If you're hungry and it's ripe, you can pick it. And so we've been working on signage to make that more accessible so folks know, I could actually pick this and eat this if I'm hungry. But it's a really cool program that you don't see a lot of. So we're really excited about that.
Absolutely. And the fourth campus then?
Cascade.
Yep.
Has our newest learning garden. So in this learning garden, we really wanted to model kind of off of best practices for urban gardening. So it's a small space, really focused on condensed urban farming. And we have a new learning garden coordinator out there. We have a really active green team. They're awesome. It's students, faculty, and staff, self-organized, that have been working on a lot of different initiatives and helping out with the learning garden that just got established as well. 2 of our buildings are LEED certified out there, the 2 newest, and also very active student leadership. I mean, these are some of the student leaders from the Cascade campus are the ones who were involved in like the divestment movement.
Right, which I definitely want to touch upon.
Yes, and banning plastic bottles, take back the tap initiatives, which were really, really helpful in getting some progressive sustainability language into our pouring rights contract, which we recently reestablished with Coca-Cola Swire. So
I've got a bunch of questions in my head.
Okay.
Years and years ago, I shouldn't say it that way because that makes me sound older. a number of years ago, I took Spanish classes through PCC, and it was just on my own, and a class here and a class there. I want to know, can I come in and take any of these sustainability classes, these urban garden classes, any of that sort of thing, just on my own, maybe a class here, maybe a class there?
Sure.
Selfishly, I want to know that.
Yes, you absolutely can. And if you're wondering, how do I find these classes?
Right.
We have a student sustainability hub, and this is kind of a one-stop shop for anything related to sustainability that students might be interested in. So this includes classes, this includes events that are coming up, volunteer opportunities, on-campus jobs, and other resources, clubs too. So basically, you can go to this website, and it will show you all of the courses that touch on sustainability that are being offered that term. So that's an easy way to do that.
So we'll make sure that link is on the page for this particular podcast. Perfect. Yeah, because not everybody wants to go back and enroll for a 2-year degree. Maybe they would just want a class here and there.
Absolutely.
To increase their knowledge.
And we have over 100 classes that relate to sustainability on the academic side. We also have a lot of community ed courses that aren't for credit that touch on sustainability. I mean, so really, you can have your pick.
Yeah, it sounds like
ones.
it.
Yeah.
And I did one of the first things I had seen that I absolutely loved, and that was in 2017. PCC became the state's first 2-year college to commit to divestment in companies that produce fossil fuels. And I saw that it was the conversation started maybe in 2015. And it was student led. So tell me about how this came about, how the conversation with students happened, and then how you got to where you are now.
So our students are fabulous, and they're always pushing the college in all sorts of areas, and especially in sustainability. And so we're always thrilled to work very closely with them on these initiatives because they care, and this is their future, and they want to see the college living its mission and its value, right? And we have sustainability literally in our mission statement at PCC. So really, students are always trying to find different opportunities to focus or to increase sustainability across the college. And one area that they were very passionate about was looking at investments, because if you really want to address climate change, if we really want to move the ball in this arena, we need to be looking at who is funding fossil fuels and how can we divest from those. And so students, I believe, in collaboration with 350 PDX, the local organization, it's part of 350.org that Bill McKibben started. And there might have even been 1 or 2 students that saw Bill McKibben speak. I feel like whenever he speaks anywhere, everyone gets this big divestment bug, which is awesome.
Yes.
Anyway, so students were like, all right, we want to make sure that we're living our value and that we're not investing in fossil fuels. And so they reached out to my office, and we started having this conversation about what divestment could look like. Why is this important? And then the next step was to go and connect with our Treasury Department. And so we worked closely with the college bursar, her Dee Wilson. She's no longer with the college, but she was great working with students, listening to their concerns, trying to figure out how this might look for PCC. Ultimately, we decided that what made the most sense was that we committed to not investing in any corporations that are on the 200 carbon underground list. And so this is a list of like the top 200 fossil fuel companies, basically.
Right.
And so we reviewed, where PCC was currently investing to ensure, and we were actually fortunately not currently invested.
Good, that made it a little easier.
It made it much easier, because I know for some large universities it can be really tricky to divest. But we were already kind of had some best practices in place, and so now essentially what happens? This went to the board. Our board directors approved it, and so now the opportunity really is just that the college continually checks their investments, ensures that there's nobody on this current list that we're investing in, because this list does change.
Right.
And then students have the opportunity to meet with the Treasury Department once a year to review investments, because there may be some other companies that PCC is invested in that they might want to.
Things come up.
Mm-hmm. You know, we've talked a lot about conflict material. We've talked a lot about private prisons. We've talked a lot about, tobacco industry. And so these might be other areas that students want to push the college to divest from if we find that at some point we are investing in those.
Right. What other student-led initiatives have produced changes at PCC?
Mm-hmm. Well, the biggest one, our students back in 2008 established what was called the Green Initiative Fund. And so basically 10 cents from the student activity fee goes into a pot of money that...
And 10 cents from all of those students is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money,
yeah.
Yes. 10 cents, I think, per credit hour. So it really adds up. And to date, students have provided over $1.1 million in funding for sustainability projects. So wow. Most of the learning gardens that we have received a significant amount of funding from this fund, and probably would not be there, or especially not be as developed as they currently are without that funding.
As robust.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Also, this fund has funded bike rental programs at each campus. So I probably should have mentioned that when we were talking about different initiatives. Especially at our rural campuses, we have the bike rental programs that are super popular. And so like for $25, you can rent a bike for a term. You get a lock, you get a helmet, you get a light, you get free maintenance, free lessons, whatever you need to be able to participate in the bike rental program, you will get for $25 a term. And so
how do students use this? Because, the campuses are it's not like students live on campus, right? So they have to commute to it. Do they take the bikes home, or are these bikes that they use around the neighborhood, if they've got a number of classes that day and they want to go out and get lunch or something like that? How does that work?
They can take the bikes home with them.
Oh,
so
wow.
That is their bike for the whole term.
Nice.
And really, the goal is that we're getting folks that they're involved in active transportation and that they are comfortable with these bikes, and that they have this bike is a transportation resource for them throughout the whole term, because we know that they may need transportation for more than just going to and from school.
Right. And it does open up a new area of transportation for them, if they don't know what kind of bike perhaps that they would need, or, dealing with maintenance on a bike, that all of that adds up. And so that's a great entry point for folks to be more comfortable on a bike. And then again, one of those lifelong, I don't want to say skills, but lifelong patterns that they can develop for many years to come. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have active transportation coordinators on each campus that help really encourage this and provide other resources for folks who are looking into maybe biking or walking or taking some other sort of alternative transportation to campus. But back to the student funds, so they've also funded things, more practical things like water fill stations. They've helped establish composting at our different campuses. For example, out at Rock Creek, we have what's called the closed loop system. And so this essentially means that food waste on campus is composted on campus through vermicomposting. And then that compost produced goes back into the garden to grow food that then gets consumed on campus.
That is,
Yep. And then the cycle continues. And so that program was first established by the Green Initiative Fund. And students have since actually renamed this to the Eco-Social Justice Grant, because our goal in all of our programming is to really ensure that social justice is central to the work we do in sustainability. And so students wanted to make sure that folks, as they're applying for grants, thinking about projects, that they're really focusing on the social component of this and including that in their projects and grant applications. So it's also funded a lot of really cool events and speakers. We do an annual eco-social justice training with our student leaders every year. So this includes bringing in keynotes who speak to the intersectional issues of environmental justice, environmental racism, sustainability, climate justice, social justice issues, and so they train students on these topics and highlight the intersectionality of these issues. And then we have a hands-on component in the afternoon. And so we're really just focusing on, empowering and developing student leaders who can think about these issues that are super complex and make sure that as we're addressing them, we are thinking about all the components, especially how it intersects with equity and inclusion. So.
Yeah. The students that are, the student leaders on the green team that are participating in all of these programs, is it a path towards sustainability and environmental careers, or for many of them, or is it something that they have passion that they've developed along the way, and while they're pursuing, let's say, business or what have you, this is just kind of added on? Or you're probably seeing a mix of all of that, right?
Definitely a mix. I would say we have a lot of students who come in and they know that this is the field they want to be in. And then we have a lot of students that take a class and suddenly they're super passionate about it and their interests change and then they want to shift. Or we have a lot of students who want to go into a business degree but want to have a sustainability focus, that lens. So it really is a wide variety. And one of the offerings that we have at PCC is a Student Sustainability Focus Award. So if students take 16 credits of sustainability-related classes, they get this Focus Award that essentially shows that during their time at PCC, their curricular focus included sustainability. And so this can have a competitive edge on their resume because we know that a lot of employers are looking for employees who can speak to these issues, who can problem solve, who are going to lead in this arena. And it's been super valuable for students that have always wanted to do this and who are just finding a newfound passion.
Right. And it's, as we know, it's not just green jobs where these skills, this mindset, this way of looking at different aspects come in handy. It is engineering. It is business. It is any sort of medical field. It runs the gamut to have a sustainability lens
Absolutely.
on these fields. Did I see this correctly? 38 sustainability courses and nearly 80 that feature sustainability across 26 subjects?
Yes. So essentially that's where the over 100 courses come from. So some focus on it almost entirely throughout the whole curriculum and then some emphasize it. And so we try to distinguish between the two because...
Nice. And you mentioned one other thing before I forget, and that was the bottles at the Cascade campus. Tell me about that.
Oh, sure. So we have students that are very passionate about addressing plastic pollution crisis.
Yeah.
And so we've had a couple of different initiatives that have morphed over time, but plastic bottle bans, single-use plastic bans, and Take Back the Tap, all sort of kind of in the same arena, but really focusing on reducing plastic pollution. And students have been pushing this, sending letters to our college president, sending letters to the board for quite some time. And so we've had all this pressure around plastic, reducing single-use plastic. And around the same time, we were getting ready to go out to bid for our pouring rights contract, which is a 10-year contract that goes to a large corporation that then fulfills most of our vending and soft drink pouring rights needs. So because of this, students were able to participate in putting out the request for proposals for this contract. And we also had a seat at the table, the sustainability. I participated in this process too. And because students were pushing for it for so long, all the folks, including dining services, auxiliary services, and our purchasing manager, were very receptive to the sustainability language and requirements we wanted in the proposal and ultimately in the contract. And I'm happy to say that we were able to get most of those into this contract. And, we now, Coca-Cola Swire will continue to be our pouring rights provider. And this contract, they said, had the highest emphasis on sustainability that they've ever seen.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're super excited about that. Of course, there will still be plastic bottles available, but we are shifting away from that, and we have a preference for recycled content aluminum cans when available. I don't know how much I can share about this currently because there's some things in the work, but we're really moving in a great direction away from plastic and higher recycled content materials in containers, and better processes for recycling containers. So yes, it was great, but really, I truly believe that we wouldn't have been able to get this strong of language into the contract had students not been pushing for this for so many years.
That's the thing that sticks out in my head with all of the, and maybe not all of the programs, but many of the programs that PCC has been able to get going, how much impact students have in pushing these changes. Perhaps these changes would have happened anyway, but pushing them to happen much more quickly.
Absolutely. And if the students care, PCC will care. And so I love working at an organization that is so receptive to its students.
Students are the customers.
Absolutely. And PCC does not forget that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Students have power. They don't always think that, but they have so much power. So that's part of our programming too, is really just encouraging students to recognize this power that they have and use it for good, and then they can go out and continue organizing.
Well, and that's a lesson that you don't find in the curriculum, but it's a life lesson that can be taught when they're involved in these decision-making process. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is there a lot of pushback of students or folks in the community, and how is that handled? Because not everyone is 100% on board. How is that handled when there's serious pushback?
I think we're very fortunate. I'm fortunate to work at an organization that's very committed to sustainability within a city where sustainability is a real value.
It's expected.
It really is expected, and we have community partners remind us that all the time, which I appreciate. We want to be responsible. We want to be good community stewards. Yeah, community is in our name. We care. So there's not a ton of pushback. There's always we have to work through processes where with funding, there's not always the funding available, and so being creative about that. Some of the things we'd love to do just have such a high price tag that they're not quite possible. Some of our behavior change stuff can be tricky. One of our programs is called the Minimax program, and essentially we took away people's trash cans and then gave them a mini can that sits on their recycling bin, and then asked them to handle their own waste. So they empty their Minimax can and their recycling bin into a central location that then gets serviced by custodians. Yeah. And there's so many benefits to this. One, folks have a smaller can, so they're very aware, they're hyper aware of what they're throwing out, which can then make them think more about reducing their waste, and then moving more towards items that they can recycle more. Right. Some studies have even shown that it improves recycling by 20%. We don't line these Minimax cans in plastic, so we were saving like 15,000 pounds of plastic from going to the landfill, because custodians would go by and empty those and pull out the plastic liner, even if there's hardly anything in there. That was their job. Right. Also saved a ton of time for our custodians. It was like giving them basically a full-time position. It was like 40 hours a week that they were saving, not going desk to desk. Right. So many great benefits, right?
Yeah. However, get up and start walking around.
Yes. So there's also some health component there too, and just building community, right? But some people did not like this program, and you try to take people's trash cans away. I literally walked around and took away people's trash cans, and we have over 5,000 staff members. So it was a lot of engagement. It was quite a process, and that was probably one program that I've gotten the most pushback on. Yeah. And you just work through it on a case-by-case basis. But we did a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of outreach around it, got a lot of buy-in from administration. We did a lot of presentations to departments to get more buy-in, or at least so they felt that they were having the opportunity to voice their concerns. So I think when you roll out a program like that, any sustainably related program where there's potential for pushback because it requires behavior change or maybe it's more expensive, really ensuring that you provide the time to engage and have that face-to-face connection is really, really important. And that's what I learned throughout that process and what I would continue to employ through any other program. We're currently moving towards taking away personal printers also.
Ooh.
So it's a similar process again. But at the end of the day, too, we have to be good stewards of our
resources.
That's money, financial and otherwise. And everyone having their own printer just does not make sense. So
our green team here, I think it was last Earth Day, did a voluntary give up your garbage can for a month. I'd say we got over 50% participation. Some folks were much more resistant to it, and that was fine. It was all voluntary. And at the end of the month, I had placed them back in one cube where people could retrieve them. And then after about a week, I moved those out and hid them away, and nothing was said after that. So I think there was a good number that just gave up their garbage cans. And we just are on the 6th floor, so it's not a big deal to get up and walk to a. But it's interesting. Yeah. It's an interesting thought for many people. The conversations were fascinating. That's all I have to say.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. I had no idea people would
be so attached to their garbage
can, or be so concerned about the time it takes to get up and walk to the central. I mean, literally, there's central locations in their office space. But over time, things just they just get used to it. It's the new normal. Yep. And so that's just eventually.
That makes me feel better that we weren't the only ones that had that, and it's human nature.
Yeah, and lots of schools are moving in that direction too.
Yeah.
I think what's really exciting about some of these programs is that then we get to share with our colleagues around the country.
Right.
And we have a really tight network within the state of Oregon, all the sustainability managers. We work closely together, share ideas, share programs, share resources. And so more schools are moving in this direction where they're taking away trash cans. We've been sharing the sustainability requirements for our pouring rights contract with folks. And so we're expecting to see that pop up a lot more.
It's a fantastic ripple effect.
Absolutely. So it's great.
That is good. 2019 PCC earned Second Nature's Mark of Distinction, recognizing the performance and goal setting of colleges and universities to reduce harmful emissions. So how did that come about? Because, again, the challenges of being urban campuses, you've got 4 of them, and there's a natural footprint there. So how did that come about?
So in 2017, PCC was awarded the Climate Leadership Award from Second Nature for 2-year institutions for all of the work that we've done to reduce our carbon footprint and promote education and engagement around climate action and sustainability. Yeah. And so really this marks of distinction is just kind of acknowledging that we're continuing the good work. I think one thing that's really cool is our president Mitsui, is very involved in Second Nature. He's on the steering committee, and he participates in the We Are Still In Coalition as part of his work with Second Nature. And so, we had the opportunity to go to the UN Climate Conference, COP23 in Germany.
Yep, I saw that.
And he just went to COP25 in Madrid.
Yep.
And so a lot of this, it's thinking about how we're physically reducing our carbon footprint, but it's also how we're leading in these other arenas and really promoting widespread change and speaking to the role that higher ed has in addressing climate chaos and really developing tomorrow's leaders, especially in the green workforce, which is where community college we're focusing a lot on workforce development, right? And that's different from a university perspective. So these marks of distinction, I mean, a lot of it is really just we've reduced our carbon footprints, our scope 1 and 2 by 37% since 2006, but also we've been engaging in leaders among community colleges in this arena. And so, that's essentially kind of what that marks of distinction was for.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned the role of higher education, because that was the one question that I actually wrote down. for you. What do you think, or what is the understanding of higher education's role in impacting climate? Because again, you're molding the leaders of the future,
Yes.
and the workforce of the future,
which I think is primarily our role. I mean, we definitely want to walk the talk, right? And we are constantly trying to green our operations and promote sustainability throughout all we do at the college. But as a sector, higher ed's carbon footprint is small in comparison to other sectors, right? So really where we have that power is through education, through research, through innovation, and through empowering tomorrow's leaders to address these super complex, wicked sustainability problems, such as climate change. And for
it's
me,
their future.
It's their future.
So it's personal for them.
Yes.
I mean, not that it's not personal for us.
Absolutely.
But they're younger than us, and they're going to be faced with the bulk of the problems.
Absolutely.
And we need them to help us solve them.
Yes. And I think too, when I talk to students, a lot of students have, what we're calling climate anxiety or eco anxiety. And so for them, it's super important. It helps that they're at a school that they know is committed to this and is walking the talk. But also at a school that is providing them with the resources and the skill set to go out and hopefully address these problems. Because
empowering them.
I mean, for me, even, it's just all of this is so overwhelming and stressful and gives me a lot of anxiety.
Absolutely. There are some things I can't read.
Absolutely. 100%. I have to take breaks.
Right. Or a bookmark it, and when I'm ready to read it, I'll read it because it physically hurts.
Yes. And the only way I know how to keep going forward with all of this is by being a part of the solution. And that's what this role offers me, and that's what I'm hoping we're giving students as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a lot of hope there because the student leaders seem to be pretty amazing.
Oh, they're the best.
Yeah.
I love working with our student leaders.
Oh, I bet. Well, you mentioned the event in Madrid, the latest rounds of UN climate negotiations. That was something else that I had written down because the PCC president was a panelist representing American Community Colleges, a nonprofit, and the nonprofit Second Nature. So, even though the federal government has stepped away from the Paris Agreement, there is a coalition of cities, states, tribes, businesses, universities, healthcare organizations, faith groups who are engaged in that conversation.
Absolutely.
So if you can touch upon that for a little bit too, because I would love to hear what you hear from your president there, who has been attending these, and you were at the one in
Bonn.
Germany.
Yes.
Yeah.
So so we're part of the We Are Still In coalition, and one thing I will say, of course, it's very unfortunate that Trump pulled us out of the U.S. Or pulled us out of the Paris Climate Treaty. But I feel like it really pushed a lot of subnational actors to get involved that otherwise would have just waited for direction from the federal government that may or may not have ever come. Right. And even if it did, it probably would not have been enough to get us where we need to go.
So it did spur action.
It did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that part is great.
And that part is great. And that's what we're holding on to. I think it's, just from my time when I was at COP23 in Bonn, Germany, speaking with folks around the world, it was reassuring that the U.S. subnational groups had a presence through WASI, We Are Still In, because they were a lot of folks are under the impression that just the U.S. is out, and clearly we don't care about this, right? And we've produced, the majority of the excess carbon in the atmosphere, but we're just not going to do anything about it, and that's not true. And so having all of those folks there, speaking to all the great work happening across the United States, was super, super important. Yeah. And from my experience, most folks recognize the really important role that higher ed has in addressing the climate crisis, but people don't always think about community colleges when they think about higher ed's role in all of this. And so it's great to be there. It's great for President Mitsui to be there and reminding folks, no, community colleges have a huge, huge role to play in this. And oftentimes, we touch nearly everybody across the Portland region, one way or another. Whether they've had folks have taken classes themselves there, maybe it's just a community ed class, maybe they went back for an associate's, a career change, or they're sending their students there because it's a great affordable option before, going on to a four-year university or one of their career tech we've touched most people across the Portland region. And so when folks engage with PCC, they can see our commitment to sustainability. And that's just another way that we're able to really kind of embed this culture and create that ripple effect, really. So,
right. For the sustainability career tracks, what are those main careers that students have gone on to after leaving PCC?
One of our goals is actually to try to track this better because
I would
really
imagine it's difficult.
Know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I hear from a lot of students. I write letters of recommendation for students. I know getting a business degree is very common. I know a lot of students go on to environmental studies or environmental science. I know there are some folks that go into like a law program. Right. But we would love to have better data on where students are ending up. So, well,
I want to ask you another thing before we wrap things up, and that is sort of what you're working on next, because you've got students coming through the door every year, new students coming through the door, wanting to be impactful, wanting to make change. So are there any programs, any initiatives that you're working on that you can discuss, even though they might be in the discussion phase or the molding phase or, wherever they are in that process?
Well, oh my gosh, we have so much. One thing that we're working on currently, I already mentioned that we're updating our climate action plan, and so that is going to be a heavy lift. We are going to be working with a consultant to help with some of this, but it's going to require a lot of engagement across the college, across the community to get feedback on what initiatives we want to focus on to meet our carbon reduction goals. Yeah. So that's going to be a big one. Where the college is updating its strategic plan, and I'm on the strategic planning steering committee. And so kind of, it's very big picture strategic initiatives, but it's important that sustainability kind of that lens is applied to that process as well. So I'm engaged with that. One thing that we've been a founding member of, a couple things I want to mention, WOHESC, the Washington, Oregon Higher Ed Sustainability Conference. So this is a regional higher ed sustainability conference that we put on with our Washington colleagues as well. And we go back and forth between Oregon and Washington every other year. And this conference is coming up in March in Eugene at the University of Oregon. So I'm on the planning committee for that, and we've been working really hard on a great program. This draws a lot of students, a lot of faculty and staff, and it's a really great regional conference, and it's an affordable option for folks to attend, and also really focuses in on issues and initiatives that are specific to our region, rather than some of the national conferences that we go to that are more broad.
So give me an example of that. How it's focused on the Pacific Northwest?
Well, programming that might be very specific. So, what renewable energy options are available given your utility provider, for example. A lot of us have similar the same utility providers. So, that's a great example. We're also founding member of the Greater Portland Sustainability Education Network, GIPSN. Yeah. And I think you've had some folks on here who probably talked about this. We host the Sustainability Symposium every year, and so that's coming up in April. Yeah. And so we're currently working on that right now, and that is also requires a lot of time and attention.
And the main question is, when do you sleep?
Oh my gosh, never.
But it's exciting stuff. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah. And then we recently signed on to PGE's Green Future Impact Program. So this is a new initiative they have where they're developing a new renewable energy facility. And there was a certain number that folks could participate. And we got our name in there. I think the whole project sold out in like 2 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's super competitive, but we have signed on a commitment to purchase 10,000 megawatt hours annually for 15 years directly from this facility. And so we're really excited about this and the reductions we'll see in our scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emissions as a result of purchasing directly from this new renewable energy facility.
Wow, that is fantastic.
Yeah, so
what you're saying is I definitely will need to have you back on later in the year.
Sure, yeah, there's always so much going on, and students come and go, and we'll have a new group in the fall, and training,
new ideas,
and developing new programs, new initiatives. Yeah, so it's always ongoing.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today, Briar.
Yeah, thank you
for giving me some of your time, your valuable time. Thank you so much.
Happy to do it.
Thank you for joining me for my conversation with Briar Schoon, Sustainability Manager for Portland Community College. If you've missed any of the previous podcasts, you can find them at our website at KINK.FM. Be sure to like and subscribe to Talking Trash, a Green Tips podcast, on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you're listening. Talking Trash is a podcast series featuring people in business, government, and nonprofits, and sometimes just regular folks in the Portland area and around Oregon who are having an impact in the world of sustainability.